I'm Lionel Sanders, professional triathlete from Canada, and you're listening to the Physical Performance Show.
And the winner is...
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
Phelps with 10 meters left. And Freeman is too good. The crowd roaring. Freeman gets down.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome to another episode of the Physical Performance Show. I hope you've been having a great week, and I hope you've been enjoying pursuing your physical best. Today's guest is Lionel Sanders. Lionel Sanders has an incredible story of coming from drug dependency, alcohol dependency just 7 years ago to have scaled the heights of one of the hardest, most grueling sporting endeavours known to man, Ironman Triathlon. Lionel Sanders in 2017 in the Hawaii Ironman World Championships finished runner-up. He finished runner-up, almost setting what would have been a course record. It was just 11 seconds shy of the former record. Yet on the day, it took breaking the Hawaii Ironman World Championship course record by fast-finishing German Patrick Langer to knock Lionel Sanders off the victory step and into second place. Boy, it was a remarkable race. I've seen plenty of triathlons in my lifetime, and this was one that had me absolutely glued and transfixed to the drama as it ensued on the Queen K Highway. Lionel was in the lead with just 3 miles to go, and he saw his lead evaporate as Patrick went past him at a great rate of knots. Lionel talks about that race, that performance in today's interview that I share with you. He talks about what it's taken to go from 29th place in 2016 through to second in 2017 and what is to come. In addition to Lionel's very impressive bio in terms of his Hawaii Ironman performance in 2017, Lionel also had some bumper races, taking out the championship in Slovakia across the half Ironman distance, racing and beating the likes of Alistair Brownlee and Sebastian Kinlay and Richard Murray. That was a crack field. Not too long after that, Lionel took out the ITU World Long Course Championships in Pentagon, in Canada, in fine form, coming from behind with a flat tyre to run down Josh Amberger for the win. Lionel also has won numerous 70.3 titles and is the dual Arizona Ironman champion. In fact, in 2016, Lionel set what was, at the time, the fastest time across an Ironman distance in the history of the sport, finishing in an incredible 7 hours, 44 minutes and 29 seconds. Listeners, this is something that's quite special. I have really never spoken with anyone that I think plumbs the very, very deepest out of themselves, as does today's guest, Lionel. Lionel was once quoted as saying that there appears to be no limits other than the self-created and imposed ones that only exist in your mind. I plan on spending my entire triathlon career testing this hypothesis. We talk about mindset today. There's so much we don't get onto around Lionel's incredible story and the way he trains. We didn't touch on his indoor training. Lionel does the bulk of his sessions indoors, swimming in his endless pool in his home, biking on his trainer and with Swift, and running on one of his couple of treadmills in his home. He's a remarkable athlete. His mindset is phenomenal. His story is terrific. You're going to really enjoy this conversation I had with Lionel, so let's jump straight in. So listeners, I have been looking forward to this for some time, ever since I watched this gentleman storm home for a second place in Kona, the Hawaii Ironman World Triathlon Championships earlier this year, with pure grit and absolute determination. He won my heart, and I know he's won the hearts of endurance sport lovers around the world, and that's Mr. Lionel Sanders. So, Lionel, you're sitting there in a beanie. What's the temperature like there in Ontario, Canada?
Well, I live right by the United States, so I talk in Fahrenheit. We're about 20 Fahrenheit right now. I'm not sure what that is in Celsius, but cold enough to have the hat on, that's for certain.
Yeah, wow. So, Lionel, it's been a big year for you. Obviously on the sport front, but also personally, second place, Hawaii Ironman, World Championship Triathlon, Slovakia, the championship, the great win there, the victory in the ITU long course in Pentagon World Championship. Massive year. Other podiums, obviously, to go along with that, racing Alistair Brownlee. All the triathlon stuff aside, though, for a moment, Lionel, congratulations on wedding your now beautiful wife, Erin.
Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, it was a good time. It was just not even 2 weeks now. So we were in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, with our family and friends, and danced the night away afterwards. It was a good time.
And mate, you're back straight back into it. I think I saw on Instagram there that it was only a matter of a few days later, and you're back putting down your first day of the new block of training. Yeah,
one of the mistakes I made last year was I took 2 weeks completely off, did nothing, came back and was injured by day 2 of the 2000. Well, I guess this season, so 2017 season. And so this year I vowed not to take 2 weeks completely off. When we were in Dominican, for instance, I still did lots of leisure, sort of, whatever you want to call it, exercise. And then just no structured training. And then I got back into it in 2 weeks, but very easy, very, very light, just building into things. And I'll continue to do that for the next couple of weeks, and then we'll really get into things sort of early January.
And Lionel, in terms of your physical preparation, we'll go there obviously, but I think the thing that has won so many hearts to your journey, your performance, is your mindset. So when you finished Hawaii this year, you said something that I just thought was so beautifully articulated in the moment. You said, you live for the battle. The result is secondary. And those that watched you in Hawaii this year knew that it was a dogfight right to the end. And obviously Patrick Langer came through at the 23-mile mark of the marathon. But in terms of that statement, can you unpack that for listeners a little? You live for the battle. The result is secondary.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly am not doing this for money and that sort of thing. Of course, I think actually with that orientation to things, you tend to get half decent at something. And I mean, I truly do do this for the joy of pushing myself. And I've come to find that you can't really find what your limits are without the help of someone else. And all my best races have all come when I reflect back. One of the ones that I always think of is Oceanside 2015, where I came off the bike with Jan Frodeno. We ran side by side for 5K, and then he dropped me. And then, I basically reflected on that experience for up until now. I still reflect on that experience. And then again in this year I was chasing down in St. George. I was chasing down Alistair Brownlee, and that was once again another person pushed me to my absolute limit, and it was all I had, and I came up short. And then in Samarin, Slovakia, back in June, Sebastian Kienle and I came off the bike side by side and ran 15K side by side, stride for stride. And I mean, those truly are why I do this and what I live for. And I think that's the beauty of the whole thing is finding out what those limits are. And I still think I haven't found them. Even in Kona this year, though I got past at mile 23, the moment Patrick passed me, I'm thinking to myself, a million things are coming into my head. How can I improve for next year? What can I do? What can I do to go another few hundred meters further? And so that's the beauty. And so hopefully Patrick and I can battle for another 5 or 6 years and find out truly what the limits are.
And so I know you've said, and you just mentioned it there, Lionel, that you feel there are no limits. Is that because thus far in your triathlon journey, which Lionel has really just been birthed from 2009 at a fairly steep upward trajectory, that thus far you've found no limits? But do you believe that with persistence, the pursuit, looking at all the factors that go into an ultimate triathlon performance, that there are no limits? Or do you feel at some point you will cap out?
I believe there are only limits that are created from your mind. So all limits are only exist in the mind. And, of course, I'm going to impose a limit on myself at some point because it's probably going to be too much for my brain to handle to go any further. But is that the limit? I mean, someone will come along and say, no, that's not the limit, and go even further. And so that's how it always happens. And do I think in long course triathlon we are anywhere near the human physical body limit? And I would answer no, not anywhere close. I mean, the 100-meter sprint, are we anywhere near the physical limits? We're probably somewhat approaching the limit because we're not really taking it down by any significant, numbers, the world record. Will we go like 5 seconds for the 100 meters one day? Probably not. Anytime, in the next 100 million years or something. But long course triathlon, we're nowhere near those things. And so no, yeah, I'll stand by what I say, and that I don't believe there are any limits that we're anywhere near anyway.
I think that's such an attractive mindset, Lionel, across all aspects of life. Let's go back a little to go forwards and come back to all things performance. But Lionel, you mentioned there you don't believe anyone can, find or pursue their best performance without the help of others. Who have been the significant people in your world on your journey thus far? You mentioned, in the heat of the battle, your competitors pull out the best in yourself. You're not out there just time trialing by yourself. You're in a man-o-man. Who have been the people, though, the supporters, the backers, the encouraging words, the people that have spoken life into your situations over the years?
Yeah, I mean, first, of course, always is my parents. I mean, I was go back many years to 2009. I was in a terrible place in my life and terrible mindset. And I was looking for something to change my life. And I decided, I want to sign up for one of these Ironman races. It was, this insane pursuit. And unfortunately, they're really expensive and I didn't have the money. And I called my parents and they gave me the credit card and I was able to sign up for that race. And the rest is history. So they've always been, they believed in me, even though I showed no dedication, no nothing. They believed that at some point I might start to show those things. Another gentleman who grew up actually in the same way that I grew up in Harrow, Ontario, Barry Shepley, he said to me long before I got into triathlon, when I was in grade 12, he said, you should think about getting into triathlon. You'd probably be good at it. And I mean, I was down a bad path at that point. It went in one ear, out the other. I wish I would have listened to him, though. Anyways, he came back into the picture after I did that Ironman in 2010. I did it. And I mean, he was very instrumental in getting me all my first bike, my first and all my sponsors, all those he was instrumental in and believed in me far before I even believed in myself, really, that I could be on the elite side of things. And then Erin, my fiance, well, my wife now, sorry, it's so fresh, I forget. I mean, very early on, she entered the picture and has been, my biggest supporter, my biggest backer. And then also the sponsors that I have now, a lot of them I've had my entire career. For instance, I definitely a loyal person, and Louis Garneau. We signed my first contract with them the night before 70.3 Worlds 2014, and I really didn't have any, real results to my name. I think I had won a couple 70.3s, but not in big fields or anything. And, that meant a lot to me. So the next day I went out and I ended up finishing fourth in that race, and it was probably my biggest performance I had done to date. And it was more for me today, you guys believe in me, so give my best, and this is, hopefully something to help you guys. And so they've been big in my career and have continued to support me. And Skechers also came in pretty early on and has been a great supporter. And then of course my title sponsor, Freshie, who's actually the fastest growing health fast food chain in the world. They believed in me as well far before I had any results to my name. So I've been very, very blessed and very lucky to come across great sponsors who believed in me and supported me before I had any results and before I could support myself. And so now, I hope to give back to them a little bit.
Lionel, you mentioned belief, and, it's such a gift when people believe in you and they call out more than you can see for yourself. I mean, I think that's fascinating. Barry Shepley, the voice of the ITU, Lionel Sanders now on a force to be reckoned with at a professional level. As schoolboys, you were both, talking seeds of triathlon. And I mean, at that stage, I'm sure you could not have imagined what your life would look like now.
No, I mean, actually our tiny little town of 3,000 people I grew up in, and the restaurant, it was the only restaurant in town, is called Shep's, and it was his dad's restaurant. So like that's where I grew up. Like it was literally where you went for breakfast and everything. And so it's actually really strange and really interesting how things turn out, in that we both came from this tiny little town with no swimming pool or anything, and we're both really into triathlon now. So I guess it's just a testament to, I mean, it don't matter where you start, you can go wherever you want. So, I mean, definitely the whole belief thing, I think there's qualities, and I think as you get better and you start to learn yourself, you start to see the positive qualities you have, and then you can actually pick them out in others who potentially don't see them yet either. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's our duty, as you start to see those sorts of things, to point them out for other people who don't necessarily see them, and try and help them cultivate those sorts of things. And I mean, I'm very grateful for everyone who's done it for me.
Lionel, when was the first moment in your sporting life, your professional triathlon career, that the self-belief really kicked in? I've heard you talk about, and you just referenced it, the moment when you went head-to-head with Jan Frodeno for 5K at Oceanside in 2015. But is there one real moment where your self-belief was really garnered?
I mean, 70.3 Worlds 2014, I would say, was the time when I remember I caught Sebastian Kienle at about, I want to say, 40K into the bike or something. And I mean, he's my hero. He still is my hero. And to catch him and then be riding with him was, I mean, that was the first time where I was like, wow, I'm actually part of the thing that I dreamed of being a part of. And then to cross the finish line, and, Jan and Javier Gomez and Tim Don hadn't left yet. They were still at the finish line. I was close enough that I was able to shake their hands and everything. I mean, that was really cool. And I still didn't really felt like I belonged yet, but that's when I started to feel like, hey, maybe with a little more work and a few more years, I might actually be able to compete with these guys. And then basically the next time where I really felt like I belonged was that race in Oceanside where Jan and I bumped elbows, and he handed me a cup of water, and it was like the time of my life. And that's when I felt like, okay, you know what I mean? Now it's really just comes down to hard work and continuing to hone the training, continuing to hone the equipment choices, aerodynamics, and you'll be able to compete with these guys. So that was the process.
Lionel, you mentioned, just to give listeners context, you pardon the pun, but you're fresh to the sport of triathlon relatively. 2009, 2017, we're not talking about, decades of work under your belt. You competed at a decent level, I believe, through school in running and basketball and things, but you said you're in a bad place. And then I know you started running on a whim. So can you just put listeners in a little bit of perspective around the journey that you've had?
Yeah, I mean, I've been running competitively. I mean, it took a couple of years off the party from like grade, basically the end of high school into when I got back into it. So like 4 years or so. Otherwise, I've been running continuously I'm 29 years old. I've been running competitively since I was 7, 8 years old. And I mean, the whole thing started. There was a young man, Jason Hernandez was his name, and he won every single event in grade 3 in track and field. And I thought he was the coolest guy in the world. And I said, I want to be just like him. And then in grade 4, I went about trying to do that. And that's how the whole running thing started. And once again, coming from a small town, it became, because there was very few people running, very few people doing all the sports. So I was able to basically do all the sports just by default because there was no one trying out for any of the teams. And very quickly it became expected that I would run because I had, decent success early on. And by the time I got to high school, actually, I was kind of resentful almost about this. Like it was expected that I was going to run for the team and all these things. And that's when running, actually, I no longer really enjoyed running. And I didn't enjoy running again until I got back into it on my own accord at the age of 2 when I got into triathlon. And so, I mean, I did ride BMX as a mode of transportation just because I lived out in the county and everything was really far away from each other. So I probably had a really good biking base
unknowingly, just because I was probably riding 10, 15 kilometers every single day on a tiny little gear on a BMX bike. So that probably helped a little bit. But no swim training, none of that kind of stuff. I mean, it's probably one of my biggest regrets in my life. We didn't have a swim team where I went to high school, but you could travel to the next town over, and they had a pool. And many times the teacher who ran that program said, "Hey, you should think about coming out for the swim team." Damn, if I could only go back and go for that swim team. That's probably my biggest regret of my life. Anyways, I competed. The best I finished in, I think it was like grade 9 or 10. I was 10th in my province of Ontario in cross country, and I was 10th in the steeplechase. So those were, I think when I was in grade 9, I ran like 15:20 or something for 5K. That was my best time. So that was my running background, my sporting background, really. I think I did learn to become a decent athlete because I did play lots of sports, pretty much every sport that was available. And I think as a youngster in sports, that's really what you should be looking to do, is just become a competent athlete. And then when you get older and you decide where your true passions are, then you have that athletic background, and then you can apply it and learn to become really good at whatever it is that you decide to focus on.
So, I mean, outside of the swimming, which, as you say, there's competitors you line up against in the professional ranks that have decades of, time in the water, and you didn't have that, so you're very much playing catch up. But outside of that, maybe the BMX riding contributed to some of this sensational bike form you've got, and certainly the running background was there, furnacing the aerobic engine. Lionel, you didn't know about the likes of Simon Whitfield, I believe, 2000 Olympic champion, Canadian, growing up. You weren't following triathlon, right? So how did this concept of triathlon even come to be? I mean, I know I've heard you talk about, you're out running and like the higher power brought this to your awareness. But your first Ironman 2010, what was the journey like getting to that start line?
Yeah, it was really interesting. When I think back on the whole thing, once again, because of Barry Shepley and the ties to my community, a friend of mine who I always looked up to growing up, who was one of the guys that I really tried to emulate. He actually went and trained with Simon Whitfield. I think we were in grade 10 or something like that. He went out and trained with him out at his camp, and I don't think it worked out or anything, but I just remember him mentioning, and that's really all I knew about Simon Whitfield, was this guy who I really looked up to went and trained with Simon Whitfield, who was the Olympic guy. And that's it for triathlon for the most part. And so yeah, I mean, where did it come from? I have no idea. It just popped into my head. And it wasn't really triathlon. It was more Ironman is what popped into my head. And so then, yeah, I had to Google that because I didn't really know what it was. It's a cool word anyway. And I Googled it, and I saw it was insane. And it still is. I still think it's insane, quite frankly, even to this day. Especially around mile 20 of the marathon, I think it's insane. But so yeah, I mean that's how it came about, and it really has made me a believer in a higher power, because I had no idea of what Ironman was. I didn't watch. Like my dad, for instance, remembers the Dave Scott, Mark Allen stuff on the Wide World of Sports. Like he can remember that stuff, whereas I have no recollection of anything. So I think it was destiny.
Yeah. Wow. Lionel, your mum, your dad, I know your mum's recently finished the Boston Marathon. You ran that with her. What's the story there?
Yeah, my mom's been, like I said, she's been really, instrumental in my career and believing in me. And my mom was a smoker for 20 years. And so she got into running, I think I was in grade 10 or 11. And actually, it was really kind of a sad story. Both of her parents passed away, fairly within 4 months of each other. And I think that was quite traumatizing for her, as it would be for anyone. And she needed an outlet. And so right around that time, she also decided to quit smoking cold turkey and took up running. And so that's how she got into sports, really. And then did the Detroit Marathon that year. I think she ran right around 4 hours. And then she was a believer in running and her religion, really. And so she pursued that for many years. And then eventually she once again, she couldn't swim either, actually, interestingly. I remember we would go floating, and she'd put a life jacket on, and we'd go out in the lake and float. And because literally she couldn't put her face down in water. So anyways, I don't know how it came about. I would imagine she was seeing me do these things and decided, hey, I wonder if I could learn to swim. And then so she took adult swim lessons and eventually was able to put her face down in the water and eventually learned to get across the pool and all this stuff. And then she signed up for an Ironman, right? What's the logical thing to do once you learn to swim? And then got into that whole thing, and she qualified for Chattanooga 70.3 Worlds actually last year, and did that race. I think it was a good experience. But anyways, I qualified for Boston in Kona 2 years ago, and I figured, when am I going to have the opportunity to do this? And she loves Boston. In fact, she was there the year of the bombings, and it was a really, really. I was watching it on TV. And the bombs went off right around where her usual finish time was, around 3 hours, 45 minutes, something like that. And until that time, that had been her best time. And I'm texting her and like going insane because I've had no contact with her, and I have no idea if she was anywhere near there when it went off. And anyway, she ran a best time, 3 hours, 31 minutes, and was in a taxi cab, didn't even know the bombs had went off. And so anyways, long story short, she went back the next year, the Boston Strong, not taking, let terrorists and all this crap, scare people away. And she loves Boston. So I figured I better go there. And if I got the opportunity now, go run the race with her and see what Boston is all about. And it was phenomenal. It really was like, the Ironman is really cool. And in the World Champs, all that stuff it's big, but these big city races is like something else, and the crowd support, it's absolutely insane. And it was a great experience. I actually did my long run. We started together, and I ran my 25K long run, and then I basically walked for the next 5K and grabbed freezies and all this stuff off the sidelines and waited for her to catch me. And then we ran the final 12K together, and it was an amazing experience.
Wow, what a great mother-son moment, Lionel. One you'll never forget, I'm sure. Were Mum and Dad there, and obviously Erin was there in Kona this year when you finished in second place?
Yeah, they were all there. They've been, they've been there the last 3 years. Everyone has come. Yeah, and seen the highs and the lows, unfortunately.
Well, and I wanted to touch on that, but what was the first thing that Mum and Dad and Erin said in this year when you finished?
My brain had no mental activity left, and I could barely stand. So I don't have much recollection, to be honest with you. I watched the NBC coverage, and it's funny because I actually don't really remember the second half of the thing. I mean, and I think a lot of that, with hindsight, probably was some poor nutritional choices. But yeah, I mean, all I remember is basically falling into their arms because I couldn't stand anymore, and just tears in my eyes and hugging them. And I mean, this whole thing for me is like when I say goodbye to them in the morning, it really is like I'm going off into war or something. Because I truly do approach it as more of a spiritual pursuit, and I mean, I might never come back. I don't know. I might take this right to the limit and never come back. I don't know. And, it's got that type of seriousness to it. And so, that's what it's like when I see them again. It's like, coming home from something like I've been gone for a really long time. So it's a very emotional thing. I would imagine I said, I love you guys and that sort of thing.
Listeners, quick break from Lionel Sanders. Today's episode, as always, is lovingly brought to you by Pogo Physio. We exist to help you go from injury back to your physical best. We want everyone who walks through the doors of Pogo Physio to cross their physio finish line. What is that? That's simple. That's where we give you a high five. We tell you that your rehabilitation's finished, and you're back to your physical best. We've got some innovative, industry-first ways of offering services, including our very popular fixed-fee monthly packages called Wellness Boosters, which see our patients and clients use in services such as physiotherapy, remedial massage, clinical Pilates, anti-gravity treadmill running on the Alta G, and whole body vibration therapy with the Galileo. We also have our unique 2, 6 and 12-week finish line programs. If you would like more information about Pogo Physio's services, jump over to pogophysio.com.au. Let's jump back now to Lionel Sanders.
Lionel, I've been around the sport of triathlon for years as a junior through the 90s, for 11 years as a junior, and then again as an adult and the senior, and I've watched plenty of Konas, and I could not put the live stream down. I was captivated. There was SMS streams going with friends of mine, some of which aren't triathletes and would never watch an Ironman, and they're like, "Wow, who is this guy?" The way you fought right to the end, and it was just something that was, I think, left such an impression in so many people. You mentioned nutrition. Is something that may have caught you this year. I heard you say that at mile 13 you felt like maybe you were going to need to walk and walk the marathon in. What do you think's going on there? Is it salt depletion, or any insights into that yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone is getting severely dehydrated. I'm not sure if anyone can get through that thing without getting, pretty severely dehydrated. One of the mistakes I made that if I could go back I would change, and I think would have a positive impact, is on the bike I took 10 total bottles, each of approximately 700 milliliters, and 3 of those I took as pure water. If I could go back, I would have either made my own little concoction of electrolyte or taken those just as Gatorades. The problem with taking straight Gatorade is you start getting too many calories, which you don't want to do. On the run, on the other hand, I had 6 200 milliliter bottles of Gatorade Endurance in my fuel belt, and through the aid stations, I just took pure water. So I took approximately 100 milliliters through each aid station times 25 aid stations is 2.5 liters of pure water. So in other words, approximately 40 to 45% of the liquid that I took in that race was pure water with no electrolyte to balance it. And so I think as you're dehydrating, your body says, yeah, I'll take that water, sure, but I need to balance it, of course, keep the homeostasis going of the blood and everything, and says, well, I'll take the necessary electrolytes from parts of the body that don't need it right now, and that is your quadriceps, your glutes, your calves, things that are actually doing the damage that's currently happening anyway. And so I think that's what was happening to me is I was because I wasn't really peeing the water out or anything. I was retaining it, but without the proper electrolytes. So anyways, as time went on, by about 13 miles, I was already having troubles getting my right leg up and over the road. And by about 17 miles, I was actually starting to drag the front. I couldn't get my right leg up high enough and it would drag. It would hit the road. And to me, the telltale sign was when Patrick came up next to me and came to pass me. My brain was screaming, go, 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 go. And my body could not respond whatsoever. In other words, I had lost, most of my muscle function, yet my brain was still working well. My ego center in particular, which is the first thing to go when it's carbohydrate deficit. So anyways, nutritionally, that I think there was a very, very large electrolyte problem. And I mean, I plan to do a lot more testing on that this year. I just wanted to get a good result under my belt. I'd had such poor results there in previous. I knew I went into it in good shape. And that was really what I tried to control was the shape. The nutrition, I never really gave that much thought. I just sort of concocted, something the night before that I knew, or rather I hoped would work and I hoped wouldn't give me stomach problems. And it wasn't very good. I mean, to say it wasn't very good, I lost by 2 minutes and 27 seconds. So it's not like it was terrible, but it could be better. That's what we're talking about now is, little things that 0.5%. That's what I lost. I need to be 0.5% faster next year. So
Well, it's like the aggregation of marginal gains, isn't it, Lionel? I mean, look at Team Sky, came in and had the goal to win the Tour de France in 5 years, and they did it in 3 through focusing on the 1%ers. I think, and you strike me as the sort of personality that will turn everything upside down to get that 1% out. So, Lionel, when Patrick did go past you, your mind, you said it was screaming to go, and when your body couldn't respond, what did your mind shift to then? Was it survival? I'm hanging on to this second, or was it just, what was your mind doing at that point?
It definitely was, and had been for probably 10 miles, was move forward. There's like literally there was nothing, there was no mental energy, no nothing other than left foot, right foot, left foot. Literally, I was saying, it's the first time I've ever, I think it was because I was so dead so early into that run. It's the first time I'd ever experienced being so dead that early. And yet I was in the lead. So I mentally I wanted to push myself, but my body was so dead. And I just couldn't fathom. Like at 13 miles, I was having the strong desire to walk. And by 15 miles, I was having troubles turning my legs over. I mean, 11 miles is a long way to go still in the most challenging part of the day, in the most challenging, there's no crowd support, no nothing. And so I just couldn't think about anything other than left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. And it's all just a blur from there. It's just that's all that was happening. I went from one point to another. And I really don't come back. I have like a few moments that I remember. I remember the turnaround in the energy lab. I remember seeing Kienle, and I remember thinking, oh, he's not a factor. And then I remember seeing Lang and saying, it's over. Like you're done. He will catch you. And so, yeah, when I saw him, I knew it was over, but I also knew it wasn't over for my day. And I knew the longer I could hold him off, obviously that's going to help my day better. And so, yeah, once he passed me, to be honest with you, I'm thinking about what can I do better next year? What can I do? What did I make mistakes? What did I do? And I wasn't really to be honest, I wasn't worried about getting caught on the back, because I had seen everybody, and I knew that everybody was hurting just as bad as I was. And so, yeah, that's kind of was my mindset. What's interesting, though, what I do remember is when I caught now as you refresh my memory, I remember crossing that finish line, and I hugged Aaron, I hugged my mom and dad, and then Patrick and I hugged. And I remember it's the first time I've ever been at a finish line, a couple times, but this is the most strongest feeling I've ever had. Is like, I know how that guy is wired, because he's wired the same as I am. And I remember him and I remember just like hitting him, like literally we were just hitting each other, like slapping 5, hitting each other on the back, like just yelling at each other. And I remember thinking, if he punched me in the face right now, I would be like, again. That's the energy. We both just had this energy that the only way to express it needed to be expressed only between him and I, you know what I mean? And it had to be expressed through physical contact and like just pure energy transfer. And right then and there, I knew that guy's wired just like you, and you should be afraid. And I learned that at that finish line.
And I saw those shots, Lionel, and it's just it all coming out, right, as that respect. There's the fact that you just left everything that you physically had out there, and irrespective of the result, the battle, has sharpened you both up. So, Lionel, Hawaii, I want to touch here, but we're going to throw that into performance around your preparation for it. I know 2015 you were probably overdone. 2016 potentially underdone, and then 2017 obviously you've had this breakthrough performance, of which there's still more to come. What do you think have been your biggest mistakes preparing for your races, and what do you think are the biggest mistakes that athletes make in general preparing for events?
I'd say for the Ironman, the biggest thing that I've learned is recovery. I'd say I'm not sure if I've really encountered people who are attracted to Ironman who are like, I don't know, I don't want to use a controversial term, but who are soft. You know what I mean? People who are interested in this tend to be extreme people who like to do hard work. In fact, that tends to be, it has been a problem for me, is we tend to want to, if I'm not working hard all the time, I'm not working hard enough. You know what I mean? And if I'm taking a recovery day, I'm trying to do something, you know what I mean, to train even on my recovery days and stuff. And that was my problem, I think, for the first, well, up until really the last year, maybe two, maybe at most, is that I've really, really come to believe in the idea of as hard as you train, you need to recover just as hard, because that's the only time you're improving is when you're recovering. And so now I operate on a 10-day block, 7 days of actual training, 3 days of recovery. And I just repeat that over and over. And then when I get into the Ironman portion of the season, it's actually 7-day block, 4 days of recovery. So an 11-day total block. But, you know, it's almost 50% of the actual training time I spend then recovering. And now what's interesting about that, and I think this is one of the reasons why people tend to overtrain, is that I think it's easier to do a lot of moderate intensity training than it is to do a small amount of really hard training and then recover. And so people tend to want to just do kind of more race pace stuff, make your easies harder and make your harders easy. And the reality is the best way, in my opinion, to do anything really, you know, even especially long distance, is to make your hard really hard and your easy really easy. And that's taken me like years to fully appreciate the magnitude of that statement, I guess. And anyways, that's the big change I made in 2006 or 2017. And so when I got to Kona, and what's interesting is when I went to Ironman Arizona, on the other hand, I was still feeling that Kona race, and that was a very painful second half of that run. Whereas in Kona, had I been in even a little bit overtrained, there is no way I would have made it through and held on to that place from 13 miles onwards. But I was so fresh from taking, you know, usually I would taper into a race, let's say 5 or 6 days. And then after a race, I would take at least 4 days of recovery. So that's like 10 days I would take, of which only 1 day was hard. And I had, you know, 7 races, let's say, throughout the season. That's 70 days approximately leading into Kona that were only 7 of them were hard. So anyways, I got into Kona. I was very fresh. And then I also had pushed my upper limits, you know, as high as I could get them for the day. And then, of course, I had spent a lot of time on my swim. So I came out of the water and I at least wasn't a non-factor coming out of the water.
Lionel, it's a discipline, isn't it, to not get stuck in the middle with training. You know, it's that discipline to make the easy and the hard. And I think it's only learnt in many ways through experience. And I know the research certainly validates that sort of almost 80-20 approach. I mean, if you look at the best running performances, that's consistent across the years. One of our previous guests on the program here, Lionel, Nick Willis, Kiwi track runner, dual Olympic medalist in the 1500. One of the things he said, Lionel, this parallels what you've said, and that's we only get ahead when we rest at an elite level. You know, everyone's doing the work, but the rest is that fact. I saw you post on Lionel on Instagram on your gallery that I think it was leading into Hawaii this year, into Kona, that you'd had 5 days off the bike. You came back and did one of your best 90-minute efforts on the bike in terms of wattage. And I thought, wow, that's a discipline to not be on the bike at that time of year and come out and do that.
Yeah, that was the 5 days after ITU Worlds, actually. I took it. I just didn't feel like, to be honest with you, I didn't feel like riding the bike. So that's another thing. You've got to listen to your body. I mean, that's a thing. I put an endless pool in the basement. And that's one of the beauties of having that thing is so often we're confined to, the pool's open from 8:30 till 9:30 or whatever, or swim practice is 10:30 to 11:30, and you're not inspired. And you will do your best work when you're inspired. And so that's the beauty of the pool is this morning, I didn't feel like swimming this morning. I had planned to swim this morning, but I didn't. I just swam just before talking to you because I wasn't inspired. On the other hand, I went online and watching videos of good, triathlons. I read a Josh Amberger blog post and suddenly I'm inspired to go down to the pool. And the quality that I produced was so much better than this morning. So anyways, I didn't feel like riding after ITU World, so I didn't. And then I came back, and after 5 days of leading the sedentary lifestyle, I was like, I'm sick of it. And I hopped back on that bike, and I think I pushed like 365 watts for 90 minutes. And it was my lifetime best 90-minute. I mean, that was with recovery and everything. The actual wattages were probably closer to 400 watts. And so, I mean, that's how I train. That's how I go about it. That's the thing. I think another reason why I think you tend to get better at this, you know, the peak tends to be like 32 to 36 is because you also grow confident in the fact that a couple days off, I've been training for 7 years. Like, I'm not going to lose something by not riding for a couple days. And then you come back and you're so motivated and so, you know, you're just like frothing at the mouth to get back on the bike. And that's when you will do some serious training. And then once again, you take your proper recovery and then you absorb it. And it's just that process over and over again.
Yeah, beautiful. Lionel, let's throw to a performance round. So some rapid fire questions here on your training philosophies and insights. Lionel Sanders, what's the training session that you most dislike?
VO2 max, anything in any discipline. I hate VO2 max. I've been actually another recommendation, find a guy or girl who has like the opposite system of you, who's got a real good high end, for instance. And I've got a good like threshold pace. I love threshold, you know, tempo sessions. And anyways, find a training partner like that and let them write your workouts for you. Because I had a friend who was a great, you know, 800-meter runner. And that's how we worked. I'd write one session, he'd write another one. And there were always these VO2 max mile repeats on the track, 800s, 400s, just vomitous crap. And anyways, if you don't like it, there's probably a reason why, and it's probably good for you. So anyways, I hate VO2 max, and I do a lot of VO2 max.
Brilliant. I saw you running on your treadmill at great speed recently on one of your posts. The training session that you most love?
Yeah, I mean, I probably like on the run 4x5K, just because it's that threshold, just slog over and over, you know, mental kind of game. And then the same idea on the bike, 4x30 minutes, just a slog kind of, you know, threshold pace stuff. I like that stuff.
Pre-race meal, Lionel. What's your favorite pre-race meal?
I got Mum's homemade pasta sauce. Now Erin has the recipe, and she makes it all. Anywhere we are in the world, I'm always having my homemade pasta sauce on pasta.
A homemade sauce, your mum or Erin? I'm joking, Lionel. I wouldn't make you. I'm joking. Bedtime.
I'm not going to answer.
Of course, you're a wise man. Sleep hygiene, Lionel. What's that like? Are you fairly structured and disciplined around that, or are you a bit more flexible with getting up and going to bed?
Oh, I'm another one of my my things I've picked up is I don't set an alarm. When it's time to wake up, the body will wake you up. And I mean, I do believe your best quality sleep is probably getting to bed at 10. Mind you, I never get to bed at 10, usually midnight. So no, I don't. Other than my only view is if you have the opportunity, don't set an alarm. Wake up when the body tells you to wake up.
Beautiful. Lionel, who's the athlete that you most admire and why?
Sebastian Kienle has been my both before I knew him, just from, you know, weak swimmer, improved his swimming, basically took biking to a new level in triathlon, and then also backed it up with very good running. And then as I got into it more, he's also just been, you know, many times now. He's given me lots of training advice. I remember after 70.3 Worlds 2014, he was the two-time defending champion, and he does this video basically congratulating Javier, you know, almost tears in his eyes because, you know, it's like he finished like 18th or something, not what a two-time defending champion hopes to do. And anyways, he went out of his way and mentioned me in the thing and said, you know, I was very impressed with your biking. And that was just like a little gift to me, you know what I mean? Of like, that is so cool. The two-time defending champion is acknowledging me in his, you know, defeat kind of video. And then just the way he conducts himself as a person. And I strive to be like him. So, and he's just been very influential in my career.
Toughest competitor you've ever raced? Who's that and why?
Oh man, I've raced some good guys. One of the best races I ever took part in, from just an absolute pain standpoint and guys pushing themselves, was Racine, Wisconsin, 70.3, 2014. I came off the bike to Andrew Starkowicz, I think 8 minutes down. And I ran the best run I've ever run to this day, 109.37 off the bike. And I caught him at about 12 and a half miles. And he also, that's probably one of my best all-around performances. And I believe if you talk to Andrew, he would say that's probably one of his best all-around performances. And it was one of those days where I wanted to win, he wanted to win, and both of us believed we were going to win. And that's what it came down to, was literally, basically 2 minutes difference separated the difference. And he's a tough guy, man. I'm excited for him to get back. I really hope he can get back into it after that horrific accident. I think it was a year ago or something, because I love racing him. I've had some great battles just because of the way we race the same way, but from different sides of the spectrum. He swims off the front, bikes off the front. I lose 70 minutes in the swim and then try and make it all back on the bike in the run. And what's interesting is it tends to come down to like those final few minutes to see who wins. So he's tough as nails. Anyways, that's one of the guys. There's too many guys. Yan dropped me like a bad habit in 2015, and I remember seeing him in Kona that year, 2 years ago, last year when he was two-time going for his defense. And I remember seeing him out on the Queen K coming up out of the energy lab, and he looked like drunk. Like he was so gone. His brain was so out of it. It was so weird. But that's when I realized that guy, like, it wasn't a good day for him. You know what I mean? He even says that. Some people don't believe him, but it wasn't a good day, though he still won by a lot and everything. Then I realized, wow, that guy's twisted. Like, he went to the point where he was like almost brain dead out there. And he was, if you recall the finish line video and everything, like, he was like, it was weird. Like, he was like drunk, really. He's tough as nails too. And then, of course, I mean, I battled with Keenley multiple times now, also tough. And then Patrick Lang, I mean, there's not much to say there. The guy, funny story actually about him. After Kona last year, I was out swimming in the thing, and this guy comes up to me. We're out playing in the waves. This guy comes up to me and he's like, "Oh, how'd your race go?" And he knew a lot about my career, and I was kind of impressed. And then I'm talking to him, telling him stuff, and then a guy comes up to him and is like, "Wow, congrats on the run course record." And then I felt like such an idiot, because it was like, oh my God, you don't recognize people, right? Because you're used to seeing guys in the swim caps and their race kits and everything. And I felt like such an idiot. I'm sitting here telling my life story to Patrick Lang, and he just finished third. And anyways, he said to me something like, if it's over 5 degrees, I do all my if it's over 5 degrees, I do all my training outside, including my biking, because it makes you hard. In order to run well in the energy lab, you have to be hard. Therefore, if it's over 5 degrees, I do all my training outside. Like, that was a quote, a direct quote. And I've literally written that down on the wall, because it's like, okay, this guy's crazy too. So they're all, I mean, there's so many great personalities and guys in this sport.
Listeners, quick break from Lionel Sanders. If you missed last week's episode, it was the 2017 highlights reel. Boy, was it a lot of fun. It was very difficult in trimming down 52 great interviews and guests from 2017 to a handful of highlight moments. But if you missed it, the highlights reel features Dean Canazis, the ultra marathon man, running 350 miles continuously. It featured Steve Monaghetti, running 4 times Olympian, Australian running icon. Featured Richard Murray, South African triathlete, who is just on the rise, doing incredible things just off the back of his Super League triathlon victory. Features Cassie Fiend sharing around her HOPE, Hold On, Pain Ends acronym and what it means to her. We also had a great chat about the 2015 New York Marathon and our experiences there. And it also features the voice, the one and only Phil Liggett, sharing about his remarkable career and the many, many Tour de France's that he shared, insights from the peloton, including his time with Lance and so much more. So if you missed the highlights episode, be sure to jump back and listen to the archives over on iTunes. Let's jump back now with Lionel Sanders.
Lionel, mantra, is there any regular self-talk that you have in these races? I've heard you express different sentiments, from there's blood in the water through to, you're here to win. There's so many things I've heard you say in the media, but is there one consistent mantra that you come back to consistently?
My favorite one now I received from my training advisor, David Tilbury Davis, and he said, be patient, be wise, be ruthless. And I love that in the Ironman because you need all of those three things. And, patience is usually the one you're repeating for most of the time. And then when you start to get, and I wish I would have repeated myself a few times more in Kona, but I didn't. But anyways, being wise. For instance, a wise man doesn't put a 350 watt, 15-minute surge 3 hours into the bike ride. So I did not live up to that one. But anyways, that would have been a time to repeat that. And then when it comes down to it, and Patrick Lang, what was funny is he even said to me after, because I said, damn, you flew by me. And he said, I'll be honest with you, I surged when I came by you because I was a little bit wondering if you'd be able to come. And I said, wow, that guy is ruthless. I'm like hobbling out here, can barely lift my leg over the ground, and this guy's surging on me. And so anyways, that's probably my favorite saying that I continue to repeat to myself now.
Be patient, be wise, be ruthless. I love it. Lionel Sanders, one word to describe your racing style.
My favorite saying, or whatever you say, is rip their legs off. I repeat that. I also repeat that to myself too. So that's like a phrase. That's how I race. I rip their legs off.
Lionel, how would you describe being in the zone?
The zone is like, there's no conception of time anymore. There's no thoughts. It's you are what you're doing. There is no me. There is no doing. You just are doing. You are. And because there's no way to describe it because it's beyond words. And you don't remember the moment because you're not reflecting upon the moment because you're in it. It's not until after. And then you're like, wow, that was amazing. And you get like this euphoric sense after, because it's like, it was this like, sometimes like I've had races before where the gun goes and I like come back to at the finish line and I start reflecting on what just happened because there was literally no mentation happening whatsoever. And that's the moment. I mean, that is the zone. That is the whatever. Sometimes it's so powerful. And I've had a few of these experiences, and I'm sure everyone's had them, where I'm screaming, literally yelling at the top of my lungs out in the training room. And I don't know why, but all of a sudden it's just like pure bliss and euphoria. And then the tears come out and everything. And it doesn't matter. I mean, you could put a concrete block under my legs and I'm going to break right through that concrete block. I don't care. I mean, that's what it feels like anyway. It's more of a feeling. There's no mentation, though.
Yeah, and the ability to get there is something that sets the greats apart. Lionel, what's the last question in this performance round? The hardest session you've ever done? Fun question.
Hardest session. I mean, I did probably my biggest power session on the bike anyway. I did a race on Zwift one time, and I was amazed at the power. I think people are fudging their numbers a little bit, but anyways, different story altogether. Anyways, I pushed 412 watts for an hour straight, which is to this day my best power output. That's probably the on paper the hardest session I've ever done. I think one time, probably one of the harder ones I did. What have I done? One time I tempoed 14:52 for 5K, and then went onto the track and did mile repeats in about 4:30. I think about 3 or 4 of them, with that friend of mine who wrote those stupid VO2 max workouts. That was pretty painful. I mean, there's lots of stuff. Oh, actually, here it is. I remember it now. This is my runaround answer. Sorry. 3x5K. First one, 15, sub 15:50. Second one, sub 15:40. Third one, sub 15:30 on 3 minutes recovery in between each. At the end of the third one, I was on the ground dry heaving. And then another time, too, actually, 3x3K. To this day, this is still my 3K record. Started off 3x3K on 3 minutes recovery. First one, 9 flat. Second one, 8:45. Third one, 8:45. Once again, also nearly puking at the end. Those are probably my hardest run workouts. I don't know. I can't remember.
That's outstanding. Lionel, where does this desire to push yourself come from? What's the true source of it?
It's one of those things. It's probably a combination of the old nature versus nurture debate. Like I had a coach in high school who he admits that I was a terrible trainer. I hated training. I literally would get around the corner and walk because I didn't even like training. But when the gun went, and this is his words, not mine, I would be like frothing at the mouth. And I've always been like that. I almost feel like a different person. When a gun goes, it's like I turn into a different person, and I just, for whatever reason, it's very meaningful to me to get to wherever it is you're supposed to go as fast and put forth as much energy as you can to get there. So that's like the nature piece of the puzzle. I've been wired that way. On the other hand, growing up, my dad was a weightlifter, and he worked out real hard, would do squats to the point of puking, and it would describe, I hear grunting and groaning and everything from the workout room. And I remember him describing when he'd do a good leg session, like feeling like his head was going to explode off of his body. And, I grew up around that, like that type of mentality towards working. When you get under that bar, when you get under whatever, you are going to push it to the point where your head's going to blow off your body. And that's the nurture side of the thing. And so I take those two things together, and that I think has led to wanting to go, the perfect race is Kona, getting to the finish line and having to be wheeled away in a stretcher. I will have officially taken it to as far as I could take it. And as twisted and weird as that is, and probably maladaptive or whatever you want to say that motivates me. I love every second. When I watched that NBC coverage this year, and I saw, I think it was Sean Welch, and I can't remember the other lady's name, but anyways, watching that just gives me shivers down my spine. People taking the true mind over matter or whatever. It's a testament to you are in control. I am truly in control now of the body. And I don't know. I think that's what a lot of, religions and stuff have tried to achieve. And so I go about it trying to do it in racing, I guess, in training.
Physical performance. Lionel, final questions. What's one bit of advice you'd give to listeners who are out there pursuing Ironmans, marathons, all sorts of endeavours to pursue their best? What's Lionel Sanders' one piece of solitary advice across all the learnings you've had from your career to date?
I'd say the biggest thing for me that I think is I truly love this thing. Like I am not doing this. Like I love training. I'm not doing this. I realized this in Kona, actually, because I could taste the win. You know what I mean? I was so close. And I know what it'll feel like to win. I got a good sense of what it'll feel like. And winning is not what motivates me whatsoever. I learned that this year. To win Kona is not going to satisfy the itch. For me, the itch is I want to race perfectly. I want to have done everything to the best of my ability. And that's what motivates me now, is the journey to finding out what is truly my potential, what is the best. My swimming is crap. Like when I look at videos of myself, it's sad. Like I am appalled by it. Thus, my swim is not currently going to satisfy. and it won't for probably 5 years. And that's what's motivating me. So anyways, the advice there, I think, is find out what truly motivates you. And I mean, don't do it for stupid, external reasons, like whatever, money or whatever it is that could potentially motivate you. Do it for that intrinsic reason. And when you do it for that, then you will be, I mean, I think you can go anywhere. I think that's what's allowed me to go get where I'm going at the speed that I'm going there. Yeah,
beautiful insight. Lionel, fun question finally. 3 people at your dinner table, living or past. Who's at Lionel Sanders' dinner table and why?
Man, that's a tough question. Holy crap, that's a tough one. I mean, I'll give you the corny answer. I am a family man, and I love my family. So, I mean, I'd love to see my grandparents again. If I could bring them back for a combo at the dinner table and tell them how things are going, I would do that. And living, I'd just have my mom, dad, and Aaron at the dinner table.
Wow, beautiful, mate. Beautiful. What do you think your grandparents would say about your recent success?
They were very into my grandma would come to my basketball games and they'd come to my cross country and stuff when they were still around. And I mean, quite frankly, I think they would be fall on their face to see. It was on NBC the other day. I think they would be pretty blown away by that. So one day we'll talk to them again, hopefully.
Absolutely. Lionel, every guest of the program issues listeners with a physical challenge for the week. What's Lionel Sanders, ITU Long Course World Champion 2017, Arizona Ironman Champion, what's Lionel Sanders' physical challenge going to be?
Oh, man. That's such a tough question. Such a tough question.
It can be entry level or it can be extremely difficult. You choose.
I would say... what should I do? What would I give? Damn, dude, that's a hard question. It's a really hard question. I wish you'd have given it to me before so I could come up with something good. I mean, I like cultivating my weakness, so I'll give a swim workout, and I'll say one session that I've yet to do is 20 by 100 on 120. So I'll give the story behind it. When I got into triathlon back in 2009, and probably was really early 2010, I had no idea about swim times and all this stuff. And I went to the pool and I swam an all-out 100 in about 2 minutes. And my head's going to explode off my body. My fingertips are pulsating. And so then I got thinking, what's good swimming? And so I Googled Ironman swimming and everything. And a video of Craig Alexander and Chris Lieto just finishing, and the set was 20 by 100 short course meters on 120, leaving on 120. They were coming in like 110, probably just an easy threshold set for these guys. But I remember watching that and thinking that I couldn't even fathom doing a single 100 on 120, and these guys are doing 20 of them. So anyways, my challenge is 20 times 100 on something that's unfathomable for you right now. In other words, it's a challenge that's going to have to be done a year or two from now. So I've done 20 by 100 on 125, and I've also done that long course meters. So the next logical thing is the 20 by 100 on 120 short course meters. So in other words, it's taken me almost 8 years, but I think in 2018 I will have done what at one point was literally completely unfathomable. So that's my swim set for you. 20 by 100 on a time that is currently unfathomable for you.
And listeners, when you take this on, even if it's a year's time from now, as Lionel's alluded to, tag Lionel in on social media. Let him know you've done it.
Please do.
And that'd mean the world to Lionel and myself. Lionel, on that, where can listeners follow your journey onwards and upwards?
I'm on Facebook and Twitter. The one that we've been I find to be most useful is the Instagram, because you can take pictures, video, and actually write something of some content. So Instagram, if you really want to get some decent content.
And listeners, we'll tag up all Lionel's handles, the videos we referred to through the interview today over on the show notes. So jump over and check that out. And Lionel is a fascinating follow on Instagram, so please give Lionel a follow there. Lionel, you get to tag an athlete lastly here. Who do you think we should feature And who do we need to hear from on the Physical Performance Show?
You know who I want to hear from? Jan. After that, I'd love to hear some insight of what his intentions are. I feel like, of course, Patrick is the man to beat, is the scary man, is the one that we're all training and gunning for. But you can't count out the fact that Jan was the two-time defending champion, really hadn't been challenged in a race in years. And then to go down like that guy has to be so pissed off and so, I mean, I bet you he can't sleep. He hasn't had a sound night's sleep in 2 months. I'd love to hear him on the show. So, all
right. Well, Jan Frodeno, if you're listening in, we'll let's see if we can organise that. We might need your help as well, Lionel. But Lionel Sanders, I think you're a gift to the sport of triathlon, and for people that know you and have now, even after this, are discovering your story, mate, it's a remarkable one. It's quite miraculous, and I want to personally say thank you. I haven't felt so pumped up physically watching an event as I did this year in Kona. You truly left it behind yourself and the gents, and for that, thank you. And mate, standing ovation, because I just think you're one of the most captivating figures in sports today. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Brad. I appreciate it.
So, listeners, there you have it. Another episode of the Physical Performance Show. I trust you enjoyed today's episode featuring Lionel Sanders as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. If you did, please let Lionel and myself know. You will find our Instagram and Twitter handles over on the pogophysio.com.au show notes, or simply search for Lionel. You will find him easily, and he's a great follow on Instagram, so give Lionel a follow. If today was your first time tuning into the Physical Performance Show, then a mighty welcome. If it was your 92nd time, then thank you for your ongoing support. If you've enjoyed today's episode and you know someone who would benefit or enjoy from hearing Lionel Sanders, then please spread the love. Share it with that special person. Simply hit share from your smartphone or your device and tag them in. That would be absolutely wonderful. That would mean a lot to myself and also to Lionel. Don't forget also to hit subscribe if you'd like to get the Physical Performance Show into your earbuds each and every week. Lastly, if you've been enjoying the show or today's episode specifically, then please consider jumping over to iTunes and leaving a review. Ratings and reviews really are the currency in the podcasting world. It helps this show get into the earbuds of more people who, just like you, are looking to pursue and perform at their physical best. So thanks in advance for leaving a review on iTunes. I'd like to say a special thanks to someone who did just that and has left a review over on iTunes, and that is AT Runner. AT Runner commented, "Brilliant insights and so much to take away." His comments were AT's comments, "I've listened to about half of all the episodes now, and Brad does a consistently great job bringing out fascinating insights into the challenges, adversities and triumphs of each and every guest. There are so many gold nuggets of insights and perspective in terms of both training and life in general. To sum up my key takeaways and themes that all of these champions seem to possess, it's a legitimate confidence born out of ultra-consistent effort, long-term planning, getting the 1%ers done, and the ability to look beyond the dark periods as a purely moment in time through a tremendously positive outlook. Each installment has been terrific. My personal favourites have been Brendan Davies, Dean Canazis, Jess Trengove, Rob DiCostello, Chris McCormack and Troy Bayliss. Can't wait to get through the rest of the new installments on their way in 2018. AT Runner, that means the world. It really is juice for me to keep bringing this show to you. So thank you very, very much for taking the time. Listeners, if you're into your running, be sure to check out my Amazon running and jogging bestseller, You Can Run Pain-Free. It's available now in audio format over on iBooks or Audible. And of course, it's available in good old 330-page paperback versions from Amazon or pogophysio.com.au. It's a 5-step method that I've discovered over 12 years of being a physiotherapist that really does what the cover promises, and that's helping runners enjoy injury-free and therefore faster running. Listeners, coming up on next week's episode of the Physical Performance Show, we keep the Ironman Triathlon theme going, and I catch up with Terenzo Bozzoni. Terenzo Bozzoni in 2017 went on a remarkable roll of performances. He raced in Hawaii, finishing in a very credible 6th place, with Lionel coming in second there. From there, he went on to take a victory in the Island House Triathlon just several weeks later, which is a completely different race, short course racing put on by one of my triathlon junior mates, Luke McKenzie. Prior to that, he also raced the Bahrain 70.3 Ironman Triathlon Champs, finishing second to Bahrain Championships, finishing in a second place to a very fast finishing Kristen Blumenfeld. And after that, he jumped on a plane, flew to Perth, and took on the Busselton Ironman Triathlon Champs, where he took the win with a day that was a bit of a funny race, missing the swim due to a great white shark sighting. But that was an incredibly hot race, and it finished off 4 races and some phenomenal form for Terenzo. So Terenzo's a great athlete, shares some really keen insights on his performance and his future. So we keep the Ironman Triathlon theme rolling. Be sure to tune in and enjoy Terenzo next week on the Physical Performance Show. Until then, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.